Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, the prosecution's revelation of additional politically motivated tweets by the spy agency before last year's presidential election overshadows the parliament's questioning of government officials. The Korean government looks set to select Lockheed Martin stealth-capable F-35A as its next line of fighter jets, but Seoul may be forced to slash the number of jets it buys due to budget constraints. Plus, Korea successfully launches its first radar-equipped science satellite from a launch site in Russia. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Friday, November 22nd. I'm Choi in Seoul. We begin with more revelations of illegal electioneering by the nation's spy agency. The prosecution says it has uncovered more than 1 million additional politically slanted tweets posted by the National Intelligence Service agents in the run-up to last year's presidential election. Kim Hyun-ji has the details.
The allegations that the National Intelligence Service meddled in elections last year by posting political comments in favor of the conservative ruling party on Twitter and other websites are piling up. The prosecution announced Thursday that they have confirmed the nation's spy agency posted an additional 1.2 million politically slanted tweets with the aim of influencing last year's parliamentary and presidential election. According to prosecutors, all of the newly found posts are in violation of the election law and the NIS law that bans agents from intervening in politics. Prosecutors found 26,000 tweets that were posted and then retweeted extensively, bringing the total number of tweets to 1.2 million. Of that number, prosecutors say 647,000 were about the elections and the rest about politics in general. Prosecutors believe that the NIS agents in question used a computer program called Twitter Bot that produces hundreds of automated posts, possibly using fake Twitter accounts. With the new findings, prosecutors have requested the Seoul Central District Court allow them to add new charges to the indictment of former NIS director Won Se-hoon. This is the second time the prosecution is seeking to revise the indictment, following the first revision last month, when prosecutors announced that they had found some 55,000 tweets allegedly posted by NIS agents. Prior to the first attempt to revise the indictment, the spy agency's smear campaign against opposition candidates was believed to have been limited to web portal sites. After the latest revelation about the 1.2 million additional tweets, the main opposition Democratic Party held a demonstration Thursday, stepping up their calls for a special investigation into allegations that state institutions, including the NIS and the military, interfered in last year's presidential election. The ruling Central Party, however, remains adamantly against the idea of a special probe. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Washington's point man on North Korea, Glyn Davies, is in Seoul to discuss the conditions for restarting six-nation talks aimed at ending Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. Davies will meet his South Korean counterpart Cho Tae-yong later today for the second time this month as regional powers step up efforts to resume the six-party denuclearization talks. Before arriving in Seoul late Thursday, Davies talked about his meeting with China's nuclear negotiator Woo Da-wei in Beijing this week following Woo's recent visit to Pyongyang. Saying Pyongyang continues to expand its nuclear capabilities, Davies said Washington and Beijing will keep pressuring the North to give up its nuclear ambitions. North Korea has called for an immediate repatriation of its citizens who are thought to be detained in China. The spokesperson for the North's committee that handles inter-Korean relations was quoted in state media as saying countries relevant to the North Korean defector issue, likely referring to China, should follow international law and promptly return North Koreans to their home country. The spokesperson then criticized South Korea for carrying out systematic and well-planned kidnapping of North Koreans and holding them as hostages. South Korean media reported earlier this week that a group of 13 North Koreans and 2 others helping them defect to the south were arrested in China's southwest and sent to the northeastern Liaoning province. And for a rare look into North Korea, our Hwang Sang-hee sat down with John Everard, a former British ambassador to North Korea who was in Pyongyang from 2006 to 2008.
Former British ambassador to North Korea, John Everard, says that ordinary North Koreans are not very supportive of their country's nuclear ambitions. Everard, who was in the North from 2006 to 2008, describes the 2 phases of reactions from the general public following Pyongyang's first nuclear test in 2006.
The first was chest-thumping patriotic pride, that their country had joined the nuclear club and they were all very pleased with themselves. And then after a little while, they started to think a bit about what had happened. And people started to ask me how much we thought the nuclear test had cost. And then they would ask, and how much does a ton of rice cost on the international markets? They weren't going to put the question directly to me, but quite clearly they were working out in their own minds how much rice could have been bought for the money that had been spent on the nuclear program. And I suspect that the result of that sum would have given them quite a lot to think about.
The former ambassador acknowledged Pyongyang's sincerity about returning to the 6-party denuclearization talks involving the 2 Koreas, the United States, China, Japan, and Russia, but said it must make compromises.
Oh, it's sincere, but when North Korea talks about returning to dialogue, it means returning to dialogue on its own terms, which it's made very clear. It wants recognition as a nuclear state, and implicitly, it wants large amounts of aid from the Republic of Korea and from the international community. And both those points of course cause difficulties to other countries.
The compromise is clear and simple.
I can't see the talks starting unless North Korea makes a very clear statement at senior level that it is prepared under the right conditions to abandon its nuclear programs. If they're never going to do it, then why talk about it?
Everard said that while North Korea appears to be technically ready for a 4th nuclear test, it is probably undecided about the exact time frame, as it will want to wait and see how things go. So will North Korea ever give up its nuclear program?
This is the $64 million question. But a lot of the factors driving them forward along the road to their nuclear program come from deep, almost feudal beliefs in the North. It was the dying wish of Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung, apparently, that the North should hold nuclear weapons. And politically, internally, in the almost medieval political system of North Korea, it's very difficult for current leaders to go against the wishes of their respected ancestors.
Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea is likely to decide on this Friday on which fighter jet model it will select to replace the Air Force's aging fleet over the next decade. And our Paul Yee reports on how Lockheed Martin's F-35 stealth fighters are widely expected to get the nod.
Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff will hold a meeting on Friday to confirm the conditions of its latest fighter jet acquisition program. The required operational capabilities reportedly make Lockheed Martin's F-35A fighters the most favorable candidate due to its advanced stealth capabilities. A senior military official said the Korean Air Force had requested that the government purchase combat aircraft with advanced radar evading and other avionic warfare capabilities. These technical requirements, according to sources, were aimed specifically at selecting the F-35. The decision comes 3 months after Seoul rejected the purchase of EADA's Eurofighter Typhoon, as well as Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle, despite the latter being the only bid within the program's $7.2 billion budget. Both fighter jet models were also found to have relatively weak stealth features compared to the F-35. In order for the deal with Lockheed Martin to meet budget restrictions and the delivery schedule between 2017 and 2021, Multiple sources say Korea may compromise on buying 40 jets instead of the 60 initially proposed, or may change the program into a multi-phased one. The one-way bidding process has also raised concerns among industry experts who say Seoul now has less leverage to negotiate other contract terms, such as technology transfers. Local defense contractors say industrial cooperation is crucial in the development of Korea's own indigenous fighter jet program, codenamed KFX. The KFX project is part of the country's long-term vision for its native aerospace industry. However, previous studies have shown that the development costs could reach at least $6 billion and bring about fewer than expected economic benefits. Nonetheless, Korea is on track to replace its aging fleet of F-4 and F-5 fighter jets, but concerns remain about whether this new purchase can stay on budget. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Japan has tried to quell jitters here in Korea over the country's current drive to expand its military scope. A spokesman for Korea's foreign ministry told reporters Thursday that a Japanese government official contacted the ministry to inform it that Japan's military forces could not be deployed to the Korean peninsula by invoking the collective self-defense rule. Tokyo's current pacifist constitution limits its military to domestic defense, but the hawkish Abe government has been pushing to expand its forces under the banner of collective self-defense. Seoul's foreign ministry has called for Japan's military buildup to be done in a transparent manner.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. The nation's top business groups have seen their profitability drop sharply this year. This includes even the top-notch conglomerates such as Samsung Group and Hyundai Motor Group, which posted weaker operating margins. Our Yurian has the details.
Despite reports of record sales by top Korean companies like Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, the nation's conglomerates are seeing their profitability decline. Online conglomerate tracker Chaebol.com said Thursday a survey of non-finance companies belonging to the 10 top family-controlled conglomerates, or Chaebol, showed all but a handful of companies reported a drop in profitability in the first 3 quarters of the year. The conglomerate's combined operating profits during the 9-month period totaled $34 billion, down almost 5% from a year earlier, while sales rose by nearly 2% in the same period.
The decline in profitability began back at the start of the European financial crisis in 2010. This was followed by China's tightening of its monetary policy and concerns about the United States' possible tapering of its stimulus. This has all had a negative impact on our top conglomerates' exports.
That's no surprise, given that most of the country's top conglomerates rely heavily on exports, 40% of which are headed to China. That, on top of higher raw materials prices, pulled down the company's profit margins by 0.5 percentage point to 6.9%. The country's star performer Samsung Electronics was not an exception. Samsung saw its margin fall by 0.6 percentage points to 13.8%. The two conglomerates that reported better profit margins were SK Group and LG Group. LG from higher sales of its display panels. Analysts say profitability for these companies fell for the second year in a row, and it remains uncertain whether they will turn in a better report card next year. Yurian, Arirang News.
Janet Yellen has taken a big step towards becoming the next head of the Federal Reserve as the Senate Banking Committee cleared her nomination Thursday with a 14-8 vote. Yellen, currently the Fed's vice chairman, is now almost certain to win confirmation to succeed Ben Bernanke after his second 4-year term expires in January. The full chamber will vote sometime after next week's Thanksgiving holiday. Yellen, set to be the first woman to lead the 100-year-old central bank, has said she will keep the Fed on the path set by Bernanke, maintaining loose monetary policies to spur investments and spending to foster stronger growth in the economy. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left Moscow empty-handed on Thursday after failing to persuade Russian President Vladimir Putin to back away from an Iranian nuclear deal taking shape in Geneva. Despite hours of talks in Moscow, the Israeli leader was always going to face an uphill battle convincing the Russian president. As Putin has said, he was optimistic about finding a diplomatic solution to the nuclear dilemma. Netanyahu has vowed that he would never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. Israel supports tighter economic sanctions and the total dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program. World powers and Iran remain locked in tough talks in Geneva as they attempt to secure an interim deal that satisfies all sides. Korea launched its first indigenously built science satellite from Russia on Thursday, and according to early indications, it's been a success. The Science and Technology Satellite 3 blasted off at 4:10 p.m. Korea time from Russia's Yasny launch base, and ground control received its first signal from the craft shortly thereafter. The satellite is carrying an infrared camera that will be used to observe the changing conditions in space. It can detect temperature changes on the Earth's surface and underground, allowing the country to monitor subterranean activities such as volcanoes and earthquakes. Over the course of its 2-year mission, the satellite will also be seeking clues about the evolution of the universe. Legislation has been drawn up to regulate the local gaming industry amid the growing number of young Koreans addicted to computer games. But as our Kim Ji-yeon reports, the bill is facing resistance from gamers and politicians alike.
More than 188,000 people gathered in the southeastern port city of Busan last week to participate in G-Star, one of the largest gaming exhibitions in the country, to check out some of the latest games, including Nexon's newly released Maple Story and Dawn Communications' Black Desert. This event is but a small glimpse at the online gaming boom here in Korea, which has one of the fastest broadband infrastructure in the world. A study released by the Korea Creative Content Agency estimated the country's gaming industry to be worth around $9.2 billion as of 2012. That year alone, Korea exported around 2.4 billion online game contents. The agency also said the gaming industry creates more than 3,000 jobs every year, but the popularity of online games has also led to a high number of gaming addicts, a large portion of which are adolescents. In response, ruling Century Party lawmaker Shin Hee-jin submitted the Game Addiction Act in an attempt to curb game addiction. The bill defines online gaming as one of 4 major addictions along with alcohol, drugs, and gambling, and calls for the creation of a national committee to control game addiction. Kim Jin-woo, a high school teacher and head of a teachers group called Good Teachers, said it's about time that the government stepped in to help solve the problem.
I've watched some students go through some tough times because they were addicted to online gaming. Some couldn't focus in class because they said they played online games for more than 8 hours the previous day. Some sort of regulations on online gaming are needed, and the government must step in.
But not everyone is on board with lawmaker Shin's proposal. Around 278,000 people have signed an online petition against the Game Addiction Act.
I'm against the Game Addiction Act because it's against freedom of choice, and I'm afraid that the bill will hurt the country's gaming industry.
The bill was submitted to the National Assembly in June, but the Welfare Committee has not yet begun discussing it. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the ongoing rumors of Samsung Lions closer Oh Seung-hwan signing a deal with the Hanshin Tigers of the NPB. Now, it was reported by one Korean broadcast station yesterday that the deal was finalized, but with no confirmation from the others. But now more reports are surfacing that the deal is near, and it'll be a 2-year deal worth 900 million yen, or roughly $8.9 million US. Now 200 million yen will go to the Samsung Lions for the transaction fee, which comes out to just under $2 million US. The deal is confirmed. The 700 million yen, or roughly $6.9 million US contract, will be the biggest any Korean has received from the NPB, as Oh Seung-hwan prepares to go from becoming a Lion to a Tiger. And now moving on to some Thursday night's KBL action. We had two games that took place last night, as we begin by taking a look at the Seoul Samsung Thunders take on the Changwon LG Shakers. Now, first quarter of the game, a rather tight game here, with Samsung taking a slim 24-23 lead going into the second quarter. Second quarter, Samsung outscores LG 17-14, with Jasper Johnson putting up 14 points in the first half, as Samsung takes a 41-37 lead at the half. Second half of the game, Samsung continues to run away with the game, with LG trying to bounce back in the fourth quarter, but with Lee Dong-jun, aka Daniel Sandrin, putting up 8 points in the fourth, the Samsung Thunders hang on for their sixth straight win, 73-63. And next up, Jeonju KCC Aegis taking out Ulsan Mobis Phoebus. A very close game from the start, as the two teams go into the second quarter tied 22-22. Second quarter, both teams still neck and neck, but with Tyler Wilkinson putting up 15 points in the quarter, KCC takes a slim 44-43 lead going into halftime. Third quarter of the game, KCC doing a good job spreading the ball around here, as they outscore Ulsan 23-17, with super rookie Kim Min-gu putting up 23 points and 9 assists, as KCC hangs on to take this game 88-81. And finishing things off in the VLeague, another 5-set match over on the women's side, as Alicia Veseleva helped Hunguk Insurance Life Pink Spiders beat the Hyundai Hill State 3-2. Meanwhile, an epic match over on the men's side, as well, as KEPCO Vicstorm took on the Korean Air Jumbos. Now, Korean Air struggling from the start, as KEPCO takes an advantage early on, as they take the first set 25-22 and the second set as well 25-21. KEPCO looking to end this early, but Korean Air barely hangs on to take the third set 26-24 to force a fourth set. KEPCO meanwhile struggle in the fourth set, as Korean Air dominate for a 25-19 set win, and we're going to the fifth set. KEPCO's Chung Kwang-in putting up 30 attack points on the night, but Korean Air's Michael Sanchez answers back with 34 points, as the Jumbos rally back to take the fifth set 15-13 and a 3-2 victory. And that wraps it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great weekend, everyone, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Friday! I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, today is Soseol, the 20th of the 24th solar term, which literally means first snow. Also implicates that the weather is cold enough for the first snow, and it surely has been. And here in Seoul, we did receive our first snow last Monday, but it looks like chilly weather will finally ease up this afternoon, as afternoon highs in Seoul metro area will finally rebound to double digits at 10 degrees Celsius. But keep that jacket handy, because cold and flu activity level will be very high today, and dry air will continue to filter in, but high pressure front will allow for the sun to shine much of the day, despite a few patchy afternoon clouds. So the weather is warming up, and the Saturday is shaping up to be one of the nicest days of the week, with the warming trend in full swing. But nationwide rain on Sunday afternoon and Monday morning will make the temperatures deep down to cool side again next week, but I'll be sure to give you more updates on that on my next weather report. With that, here are the readings for today. A morning low in Seoul started off at -1, but it will climb up to 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 degrees in Fahrenheit, while Daegu and Gwangju will see a high of 13 and 12 respectively, and Busan will enjoy a mild with a high peaking to 14. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will also have mild afternoons soaring to 13. Daejeon and Dokdo will top out at 10 and 9 respectively, and Mount Kumgang will be at 1. Now that's all from me at this hour. Hope you have a wonderful Friday.
And those are the stories we have for you this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.